Bay Area blackout moment right now. I'm telling you to stop whatever you're doing because something just happened in this franchise that the rest of the West has been praying would not happen. This is not a rumor. This is not a training camp puff piece. This is the kind of front office move that tells you Golden State is done apologizing for getting pushed around in the paint, done pretending effort is enough, and fully ready to weaponize size, IQ, and money all at once. I'm talking about a veteran that changes how Stephen Curry breathes in crunch time, a contract number that screams urgency, and a second 7-footer that's already being watched as the next piece in a front court rebuild built for May, not for October highlights. I'm going to walk you through exactly what just shifted in this team, how it affects the rotation, what it means for Jonathan Kuminga's touches, why this is a win for Steph in the half court, and how a name that most casual fans laughed at for years suddenly becomes part of a serious playoff equation. So, what did Mike Dunleavy Jr. and company decide to do after that? They didn't chase raw athleticism. They didn't gamble the future on another experiment big. They doubled down on something smarter, bankable intelligence in the front court. They're building a front line that plays like a veteran quarterback, reads the floor, calms everyone down, kills opponent runs with structure. And they're doing it without breaking the offensive identity that makes this franchise dangerous. That's the detail I need you to lock in right now. Size, but not slow. Physical, but not clumsy. Old, yes, but old in the way that knows how to win in June, not old in the way that needs help off the bus. That's the bet. And you're going to feel it in the first 5 minutes of every game. Because this isn't about a bench specialist. This is about the first action of the first possession. Let me paint the on-court picture. And you tell me if this sounds familiar from any of the Warriors' great years. Curry uses a ball screen. Defense panics, help comes, and instead of dumping it to a big who freezes, the ball goes to a front court brain who already knows where the next pass lives. He doesn't need to put it on the floor 6 times. He doesn't need to dribble himself into a trap. One touch, snap to the corner, done. Or he fakes that pass, pivots, and hits the cutter from the dunker spot for 2 easy points without even looking stressed. That's how you win playoff possessions in the last 6 minutes of a tight game. 5. That's what this team hasn't had consistently in the middle since the Andrew Bogut Zaza years, a center who doesn't just exist, but actually organizes. And I want you to notice how fast the Warriors moved once they knew that guy was truly available. They didn't hesitate. They didn't wait for the market to cool. They wrote the check and made it real because this wasn't just about production. It was about message. Now I'm going to say the name out loud because at this point, you figured it out. Golden State has locked in Al Horford on a multi-year deal to be the new anchor of the Warriors' front line, bringing him in for his 19th NBA season and giving him real defined responsibility right away. Horford is not a nickname signing. Horford is stability. He's a 5-time All-Star. He's played deep in the springs. And he just helped deliver championship-level defensive and spacing value in a system built on ball movement and spacing, which is basically Warriors' DNA. He chose to keep playing. And he chose to do it here, in a role where he's not just filling minutes. He's expected to start, to space the floor, to talk on defense, and to act as a bridge between the vets and the kids. The deal is structured over multiple years, which tells you Golden State didn't see this as a rental. They see it as an identity piece. He walks in at 39 with a reputation for hitting the pick-and-pop three, quarterbacking the backline, and staying composed in ugly games. And he becomes the first true no-drama adult at center this team has had in a minute. Let me explain why that matters for Steph in plain language. When Curry is on the floor with Horford, the Warriors don't have to beg for driving lanes. Horford is going to live above the elbows and the top of the arc, not clog the dunker spot. That spacing drags the other team's rim protector up and out, which immediately opens airspace for Jonathan Kuminga to attack downhill without seeing a body already waiting under the rim. It also means Curry doesn't have to go 1-on-3 just to get to his floater. Instead, you'll see Curry snake off Horford's screen, force a switch or a miscommunication, and then hit Horford in the pocket. From there, Horford can either rise and shoot that mid-range face-up jumper, swing to the weak side corner for a clean catch-and-shoot look for one of the wings, or drop a bounce pass to a cutter for a layup. That is the triangle Steph has been begging for: trust, timing, and a safety valve that doesn't waste a possession. This is the antidote to those grindy late clock heaves where Steph is forced to take a 30-footer with someone in his jersey because nobody else could create a second advantage. Now turn the camera to defense. Because this is where veteran centers either get exposed or prove they're still worth the flight miles. Horford's value is not about jumping out of the gym. His value is that he knows how to be early. He shows high enough on pick and roll to bother elite guards, then slides back into position fast enough to wall off the drive without fouling. He calls out screens before they come. He boxes out with his hips instead of his hands. He's the guy yelling coverage, so the guard can lock in on the ball instead of constantly checking over his shoulder. That doesn't show up on a TikTok clip, but it absolutely shows up in playoff fourth quarters when miscommunications turn into corner threes. You're also getting a backline adult who can tell the young wings where to be, who can slow the bleeding after a 9-0 run, who can remind everyone that you don't lose a game in the middle of the second quarter just because the other team hits 2 step-back jumpers. Horford has literally made a career out of not blinking in those moments. The Warriors need that voice on the floor as much as they need his box score. I want you to also understand the ripple effect here on the rest of the roster. Kuminga just got paid and earned it by flashing two-way star potential when he was finally trusted with the ball and given real space to attack. Golden State secured him on a 2-season deal worth serious money to avoid losing him and to keep him happy in the short term while maintaining long-term control. That alone told you the team sees him not as trade bait, but as part of the foundation. Horford fits that plan because Horford doesn't eat Kuminga's touches. He creates cleaner touches for him. Kuminga doesn't have to initiate from the three-point line against a set wall anymore. Now he can cut, catch on the move, and finish through contact, which is where he's terrifying. And on nights where Kuminga is cooking and Curry is bending the floor, Horford becomes the calm outlet instead of the pressure point. This is how you build around young legs without killing your star's timeline. Before we touch numbers and names, I want to lay out the reality that pushed Golden State here, because you and I saw it last season. We saw a Warriors team that still had the punch to scare people once it brought in elite talent on the wing. Climb back into "you actually don't want to see us in a series" territory, and then ran straight into the wall in the second round when Minnesota forced everything into a slow, physical game and dare Golden State to solve size, length and discipline at the rim for 7 straight nights. That exit hurt because it exposed 2 truths. First, Steph can still bend a defense whenever he wants. And second, he shouldn't be asked to carry that burden in chaos every single offensive trip at age 37, while also trying to cover on the other end. The front office clearly saw the same thing. This is a team that has already shown it will go get high-end star-level help to keep the window alive. And it's a team that is still thinking in terms of deep playoff rounds, not playing survival. And I know what some of you are thinking already, because you're smart. What about Draymond Green? What about the switching identity? What about the classic small ball death lineup idea? The answer is not that it dies. The answer is that it finally gets to be a choice again instead of a necessity. For years, Golden State has had to go small, not because it wanted to, but because it had no other way to survive. That burns guys out. Now, when you want to go ultra-mobile and switch 1 through 5, you can still slide Draymond to the 5 and unleash chaos. But you don't have to live in that look for 30 minutes just to keep up with teams that throw 2 7-footers at you. You can start with Horford, steady the game, own the glass, slow the other team's rhythm, and then you can pick the exact moment when you go small as an attack, not as a desperate answer. That difference alone is worth money in the playoffs. Now let's shift to the part almost nobody outside the Bay is catching yet. And it's honestly my favorite subplot in the whole story. While everyone was focused on getting Horford in-house, the Warriors front office has quietly been doing homework on Luke Kornet, a 7-footer who built his reputation as a rim protector, a screener who hits like a truck, and a low-ego, low-usage big who doesn't need touches to impact winning. Kornet's path the last couple seasons turned him from third-string insurance into real NBA rotation size. And teams notice. Golden State notice. This is not a fake link. The Warriors had Kornet on their radar as a possible depth piece at center, especially because he gives you classic paint protection traits: contest at the rim without fouling, verticality that annoys elite drivers, second-chance rebounds, and those wide, deliberate moving screens that spring shooters. The only reason he's not wearing blue and gold right now is price. He ended up getting serious money elsewhere, something in the $40 million plus total range, because size that knows its job always gets paid when the market dries up. That's how high his stock actually climbed. Speaking of money, let's talk about what Golden State actually committed, because commitment is the loudest part of this whole thing. Horford did not walk in the door on a veteran minimum handshake. This is a multi-year agreement, not a one-month rental, and it comes at a real number for a 39-year-old big man heading into his 19th season. The Warriors are paying for leadership, playoff-proof habits, and floor spacing from the 5. And they're doing it in a cap environment where every dollar for an older big is going to be questioned. That tells you exactly how badly this front office believes the roster needed his brain and his presence. It also tells you they believe the core is still in a real window. You don't spend like this if you secretly think you're cooked. You spend like this when you look at Steph, at Kuminga's jump, at the veteran wings you kept around, and you say, this can still win right now if we stop pretending rebounding and screening are optional. Why am I telling you this? Because that Kornet interest reveals the second half of the Warriors' plan. Horford is the brains, the connector, the closer. Kornet is the sledgehammer profile, a pure paint body who doesn't stretch the floor but erases easy layups, erases second-chance dunks, and lets your shooters rest for 3 minutes without surrendering the rim. That tells me Golden State isn't only trying to fix the starting lineup. They're trying to fix the non-Steph minutes, the dead zones in games where Curry sits, the exact stretches that have cost this team playoff leads in the past. Think about it. When Steph sits, the offense naturally slows. If you don't defend in those minutes, you bleed out. If you do defend and you win the glass, you survive long enough for Steph to come back in and detonate a run. Kornet is built for that survival style. That's why the Warriors tracked him. That's why they're still watching that archetype. They know those 10 to 12 minutes without Steph cannot keep being a trust fall. Now, let's talk Steph Curry, because everything still spins around number 30, whether we admit it or not. What Horford gives Steph right away is the gift of efficiency. Steph does not have to win every possession off the dribble anymore. He can give it up and keep moving, knowing the big will continue the action with purpose instead of killing the rhythm. That means Steph can work off screens more often, come off pin downs cleaner, and hit those catch-and-shoot threes we all know are basically free throws for him when his feet are under him. Horford screens with intent, sets the angle like a wall, then flips his hips to seal. That half second is oxygen for Steph. And late in games, when teams trap Curry to get the ball out of his hands, Horford is now the release valve you can trust to make the right next read. That is huge in playoff basketball. You win or lose entire series on whether your release valve panics or punishes. And let me be crystal clear about the age conversation, because you're going to hear it from national shows that don't actually watch this team. Yes, Horford is old. He's 39. He's about to start his 19th NBA season. That's not a secret. But I don't want you obsessing over his birth certificate. I want you looking at role and usage. Golden State is not paying him to jump over people. Golden State is paying him to be in the right spot, to talk, to stretch the floor from the 5, and to deliver grown-up possessions when the game starts getting muddy. He can still hit from outside. He can still absorb contact on the block. He can still defend smart in space. And he's playing next to Curry, Kuminga, Melton, Payton, guys who can cover ground and fly around him. You manage his minutes, you don't ask him to be 2015 Al Horford, and you get playoff value on demand. That is absolutely worth the investment, and Golden State clearly believes that value is bigger than the sticker shock. Otherwise, they wouldn't have pushed to bring him in on a multi-year deal instead of letting someone else grab him or letting him walk away from the game entirely. So here's where I land on all this, and I want you locked in because I need your voice in the comments after this goes live. The Warriors didn't just add a veteran big. They reset the tone. They told the league, we're not done. We're not ashamed of going older if older means smarter. We're still in this. They secured Kuminga. They kept their defensive dogs in the backcourt. They took a proven, playoff-tested center in Al Horford and handed him a job. And they're actively studying guys like Kornet, big, long, unflashy, physical, reliable, because they know the last missing piece is stabilizing the non-Steph minutes and owning the glass. That is not what a team does when it's quietly rebuilding. That is what a team does when it believes that, with the right structure around Curry, it can still make a real run through the West. The Kornet profile also lets Draymond move back into his best version of himself. When you've got a true shot blocker behind you, Draymond becomes a free-roaming disruptor again, jumping passing lanes, baiting bad passes, barking coverages. When Draymond has to be the only big and also be the backline, the energy tax is insane. When there's another 7-footer soaking up rim collisions, Draymond can go back to being the smartest chaos engine in the league instead of the emergency firefighter every trip. That's the quiet value of pairing a rim protector body with a talker like Horford and a mind like Draymond. You stop playing emergency defense. You start playing defense. I want you to watch how this front court rework also feeds the wings and the guards that stayed. Guys like Gary Payton, too, and D'Anthony Melton didn't re-sign here just to chase people around screens and hope for steals. They came back to be part of a defensive identity again, a group that can smother opposing guards and live off turnovers. Add Horford's communication and potentially a Kornet-type rim wall behind them, and suddenly, those two can get aggressive at the point of attack without worrying that one slip gives up a dunk. You get to turn defense into offense again, and that's how this team used to bury opponents in the third quarter. The front office clearly values that enough to keep those guards in the building, to pay Kuminga, and to line up a front line that speaks their language. Now it's your turn. You heard the financial side. You've heard the rotation logic. You've heard why Horford is more than just another old guy. And you've heard why Kornet's profile matters, even if he's wearing different colors right now. I want you to tell me straight, are you in on this version of the Warriors, the version that spends on experience, that values communication, that would rather buy reliability at center than chase another flashy wing? Or do you think the front office is leaning too hard into age and not hard enough into vertical explosiveness? Drop that in the comments because I'm reading everything. I want to know if Dub Nation truly believes this is the group that can carry Steph, keep Kuminga growing, and punch back at the bigger, meaner front courts in the conference when we get to the second round again. And before you go, make sure you're locked into this channel, because I'm going to keep bringing you what's actually happening around this team, not the lazy national talking points. Hit subscribe, turn on alerts, and stay close. Because the next big body that comes through that door might be the last piece between Golden State and another deep run.